I'd find myself searching for her, as if she might be sleeping in one of my children's empty bedrooms. But she wasn't there. What was I looking for as I poked around the house? Was it really the dog I'd lost? By the time you're in your 50s, a lot of things have flown. You learn to make peace with ghosts, but it's an uneasy truce at best. I'd sit in my children's bedrooms now and again and get all mopey about the fact that they'd become adults so swiftly. Here were the talismans of their childhood, finger paintings from pre-K, an old soccer ball, college diplomas. The rooms reminded me of a photograph I'd once seen of the tomb of Tutankhamun, with the relics of the boy king's life, a golden mask, an ancient checkerboard, strewn around the burial chamber. They lay where they'd been left, 3,000 years before. I'd been their mother for 17 years, but for years before that, I'd been a father, a boyfriend, a child. I had never regretted coming out as trans, living in the world without shame or secrets. But there were times when I remembered my younger self the way you'd remember a dear friend you'd lost, for reasons you no longer quite understood. Where was that boy? That adorable nerd who'd spent his days sitting on the banks of a stream in Pennsylvania, fishing for brook trout. I wondered, sometimes, what had become of him. Would it be necessary, in the days to come, to refer to him only in scare quotes? My days have been numbered in dogs. Even now, when I try to take the measure of the people I have been, I count the years by the dogs I owned in each season. When I was a boy, for instance, I had a Dalmatian named Playboy, a resentful hoodlum who loved no one except my father. Later, as a hippie teenager, I had another Dalmatian, a mournful, swollen creature named Sausage. While I was off at Wesleyan, becoming insufferably cool, my sister brought a mutt named Matt home from Carleton, a dog whose insatiable sex drive and accompanying disregard for the rule of law made it abundantly clear that he was determined, as they say in Ireland, to live a life given over totally to pleasure. Still later, during my years as a nascent hipster in New York, my family acquired a lab named Brown, whose only true devotion was to eating her own paws, a pastime that obsessed the dog as if her feet were a rarity more succulent than Clam's Casino. In my 30s, as a young husband, I adopted a Gordon setter named Alex, a wise soul who stood watch over my wife and me right up until the day our first child was born. And then, as a father, I shared a house with Lucy, a retriever chow-chow mashup who wasted exactly 0 time in making clear her utter contempt for me, for our children, for all of us. We'd come home each day to find the dog in a state of cynicism and disapproval. "Oh," she'd say, just like Tony Soprano's mother, "look who calls." It was Lucy who was on duty the day I finally came down the stairs in heels. She looked me up and down with exhaustion. "Ugh," she said, "I wish the Lord would take me now." Actually, a lot of people reacted like that at first, including many of the men and women I had loved most. When we talk about dogs, it is not uncommon for people to say things like, "They love us unconditionally. Their hearts are so pure." But to be honest, I have rarely found this to be the case. When I was a boy, for instance, there was a German shepherd named Gomer who lived on a farm near our house. Most of his days were spent at the end of a heavy iron chain. If he'd been given the option, it was clear enough. Gomer would have torn me apart like a Walmart piñata. The only thing unconditional about Gomer's feelings toward me was his bottomless hate. But his owner, Joy, saw him as an adorable rascal. "Who's a good boy?" she asked the terrible Gomer, feeding him a piece of raw steak she'd obtained specifically for this purpose. "Who's a good boy?" In the years since, I have known lots of people whose love has been focused solely on other questionable creatures, some of them evil, such as Gomer, and others just sad and floppy, dogs with all the sentience of a used ShamWow. But the adoration that my friends have had for these wuffly creatures, and with what profound devotion they've arranged their days around their needs.